everyone, and welcome to Fox 9 Sports Now. I'm Jim Rich. Well, the Viking rookies report to camp. That story in a bit. But first, we start with the Minnesota Twins. A stunning start to the unofficial second half of the season have seen the Twins retake first place and now have built a 3-game advantage over Cleveland. Today, the Twins once again rallied to sweep the Sox. Bailey Ober, getting the start for the Twins, had a quality outing but was hurt by a couple of long balls. This one doubled the Sox advantage as they built themselves a 3-0 lead. Twins bats were quiet until the last possible moment. Bottom of the ninth, Twins get their first run of the day. Willie Castro laces this one to left center. Matt Wallner scores. Twins had life. Then they got within one, and Alex Kirilloff fights off this pitch, poking it down the left field line. Castro comes around to score, and this game is going to extra innings. After each team got a run, the Twins with a chance to win it in the 12th, and Ryan Jeffers comes through, grounding it through the right side of the infield, bringing home Kyle Farmer, and the Twins walk off on Chicago 5-4. Ryan Jeffers, his first ever walk-off, and he's enjoying the moment as the Twins get the sweep. So the Twins now will be pushing to pull away in the Central. And with the trading deadline on August 1st, the focus now turns to Twins President of Baseball Operations, Derek Falvey. Will he be aggressive like he was a year ago? Or perhaps even a seller? We sat down with Derek today to discuss the state of the franchise.
Ground ball, base hit, right field. Jeffers walks off the White Sox.
Your team sits in first place. Do you feel like a first place club?
Well, I don't ever feel, I think the question that you're asking is, do you feel like you're good enough, right? And I think the answer is, we never feel like we're good enough. There's 29 other clubs out there that are constantly pushing and driving to be the best. And I think whether it's been in a season where we're really tracking well from win standpoint or not, we're always just trying to get better. And I think that the focus of our team is, our record's our record, whatever that is. Our division's our division. The rest of the league is doing what they can do. Control what we can control, which is how we prepare every day, how we get better, how we go out and compete for that night's game. And I think our guys do a really nice job of that. That has to be the focus all the time. I don't think about where we sit within the spectrum of teams. I think about how do we make this roster the best it can be every day.
Angel got him.
Strikeouts. You lead the league, could be an historic pace by the end of the year. Is that a concern to you?
Well, when I look at it, I flip it around sometimes. I think we lead the league in strikeouts on the pitching side, and so ultimately I want to answer that question instead of the other one. But I know what you mean. Listen, it's not a goal to strike out. It's definitely not been our focus offensively. With some power-oriented players comes a little bit more swing and miss for sure. And we know that power still is a central element to winning baseball games, not just in the regular season, but certainly in the playoffs. Some of our guys have come back a little bit and have made some adjustments, and some of those strikeout numbers are going down some. Ultimately, it's something we're looking at. But when we think about it, we're just trying to create the most amount of offense we can. Getting out by way of a strikeout or getting out by way of a ground ball sometimes to us. Not that I'm saying they're neutral in any way, but they're both outs. Ultimately, we want to create runs. How we do that, we're going to continue to evolve the personnel that we have. If we have some guys on the team that are going to strike out more, we have to accept some of that with ultimately what they provide in terms of the other side of the equation.
Popped up, short left. A 3-hit shutout for Joe Ryan.
Was there a change of philosophy with pitching? Because all of a sudden, you're now right up there with everyone else in complete games, quality starts, ERA. And a year ago, your relievers almost pitched as many innings as your starters.
Yeah, some of it's personnel. Some of it's the reality of guys stepping into those roles. When we traded for Pablo Lopez, we felt we could get an ace, and we think he's got all of that potential and that ability to pitch deep into games, give us those quality starts. We knew what Sonny Gray and guys like Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober could do but they've just gotten better. They've matured. You know, they've found another gear, so to speak. And I think Sonny came in a great spot this year, ready to go. We were coming off of the lockout last year. It was a very unique start. There were some ups and downs, and some of the personnel we had maybe couldn't go as deep into games. This year, the goal has always been to build really good pitching, both from the starting rotation and the back end of the bullpen. And when I think about what Joan Duran and Griffin Jacks and others have been able to do toward the back of games for us, has really just made us better.
Speaking of depth in the rotation, you're sitting on Dallas Keuchel, who opted to stay with your organization. What's the plan for him?
Yeah, Dallas is somebody who we know he's won a Cy Young. He's been a World Series winner. This guy's been at the top of the mountain in baseball. We pitched him on a comeback here where he could continue to grow and develop, maybe evolve who he was. He's not trying to hunt the Dallas Keuchel of 10 years ago. He's trying to become the next best version, and he's done a great job for us over in AAA. He's adapted, he's adjusted. With where our starting rotation is right now, as you just said, it's hard to crack, and that's a good problem to have.
Does this allow you to perhaps move a starter if you have that opportunity for some piece that you can't believe is available on August 1st?
That's not our goal. You know, ultimately we want to continue to build the depth of the starting rotation and in the bullpen, because there's no one sitting in my seat ever thinks they have enough pitching. I promise you that. So we want to continue to build it that way. Obviously we need to remain open-minded going into the deadline if there's a really unique creative opportunity to move some pieces around, but I still think that's an unlikely outcome.
Last year the holes were obvious. This year it doesn't seem as obvious. Do you look at this trade deadline as a way to really push this team over the top, or is this more of a complementary position you're in this time around?
I think it's a fair question, because last deadline, as you outlined, we did identify some real clear areas of need and potential fits on the market that could up the team. You're always looking for a little bit more and squeeze a little more juice out of each roster spot, but as you just articulated, when I look at the bench that we have and the group that we have and the depth, and Eddie Julian coming up and playing the way he has, the way our other positions on the field have stepped up to perform, I look at it as our pitching has been what it's been, which has been great for us. If we can continue to augment that, we'll always look to do so. On the position player side, I think we know we go as some of our core players go, and our secondary players or complementary parts have really performed nicely for us. If we can get the big boys on our team, so to speak, to continue to perform the way they have here in this second half coming out of the break, I think that really sets us up well to be creative going into this deadline.
I can't talk about what I just saw in the game. I don't think any of our guys want to sit there and actually try to put words to it. It wasn't good.
After, I think it was the Boston game, for Rocco, he really ripped into the club and said he was very disappointed in what they were doing. Then another low point after the Toronto game, going into the All-Star game, he was positive, backing them, saying, hey, we're not in a bad spot here. Any reason you think for a change of philosophy? Was it perhaps a conversation you had with him?
No, I think it's the evolution of a manager and the evolution of Rocco, and then ultimately the group that's in there. I think that every manager, their primary duty and their job, and Rocco believes this, is to make sure that he puts those guys in the best position to be successful every day. And oftentimes that's having maybe a closed door conversation that you don't get to hear or others don't get to hear, that maybe fires a guy up a little bit and is a little more direct than what you see publicly, but he wants to back him and he doesn't want to embarrass him publicly. That happens across all of baseball. And I think Rocco has those moments with different players along the way, but he also knows when there's a guy that he needs to put his arm around and say, listen, I know the noise outside is really negative, and there's a lot of stories and current tenor that's negative about your play. I got your back. I've got support. You're going to help us get better. And ultimately, that's what the best managers do. They find that balance. They find when they got to put an arm around them and when they got to poke them in the ribs a little bit. And Rocco's found that balance. He continues to evolve as a manager who's still growing and learning.
Speaking of putting an arm around a guy, Byron Buxton, could you share a little more of the organization's philosophy of what we're witnessing now? Because a lot of fans have question about what Byron's up to right now.
Yeah, so Byron, through the course of the year, we've been really honest about this on all fronts, with Byron, with the media and otherwise. We don't have a perfect crystal ball for Byron Buxton. We started the year, obviously, with him DHing, spending a lot of time in that spot, with the hope that we would grow that into more play in the field. We've evaluated him on a day-to-day basis and on a week-to-week basis as to how he's feeling, how he's progressing, how the body's doing, and ultimately how he's performing. And certainly he's gone through some really tough stretches offensively, but then you see, just over over the course of the last few games, some sparks and looking like the Byron that we all know and love, and will be a key member of this. We'll continue to evaluate that on a week-to-week basis, getting him around, moving around, evaluating how much center field he can play. That's still part of the conversation, but a lot of that's with Byron himself too, and there's a lot of back and forth there. We'll continue on this plan and on this path, and if that changes, we'll certainly let everyone know on that, and you'll see it out there. But it's not something that we're going to change at this course. We're going to continue to have that conversation with him and with everybody internally.
This seems like a ridiculous question, but will we see Byron Buxton back in center field in a Twins uniform? Not just this year, next year down the road?
I very much hope so, and that's the goal. That's always been the goal. It's still the goal today. It's still the goal, in some ways for some point in time this year. But I think our view of that is we need to evaluate that based on how everything else goes into it, because we know if we can get the hitter that we get out of Byron Buxton and the player on the field, and we know how much he can impact the game, that's going to continue to be our focus. We hope it's on both sides of the ball, but ultimately at this time, we're going to continue to focus on how he can help us offensively.
Our thanks to Derek for taking the time, and Dustin Morse of the Twins PR staff for helping us out.